Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Bonnie McDonald, and I'm the president and CEO of Landmarks Illinois. And on behalf of our board and our staff, I am proud and excited to welcome you to the 25th anniversary of the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation Preservation Awards. We often hear from you that this is the feel-good event of the year, celebrating incredible accomplishments in historic preservation, with people showing months or years of dedication to these places and saving them in their communities. Now, tonight has even greater significance as we commemorate this program's silver anniversary. Reaching such a milestone provides the opportunity to reflect. Over its history, the awards has shined a spotlight on 213 projects across the state and another 30 individuals who have received awards for leadership. 78 communities across our state have been honored and represented. This special program book you received this evening, which I hope you all got a copy of, looks like this, is essentially an encapsulation of the historic preservation movement in Illinois since 1994. And I hope you will take a look and that you will enjoy reading about all of those past award winners as well. Read the experiences of award recipients and you'll find a common theme. The awards provide not only validation for their hard work, but also hope for the future. As we've learned, the work of historic preservation is more than people saving places. It's also places saving people. We can all be thankful that there's a benefactor who understands the impact of historic preservation. Richard H. Driehaus and his eponymous foundation have supported the awards program for 25 years. We are honored that Mr. Driehaus has joined us this evening, along with Kim Coventry, Executive Director of the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation, to commemorate the impact that their support has made possible. The Driehaus Foundation not only supports the ceremony, but provides for one of the most cherished, and I would say coveted, awards in all of preservation. Tonight's winners will be presented with an amazing work of art from Michael Chupik of Trek Studios. The award that you see before you is a replica of a spandrel panel from the Western Methodist Book Concern building that was designed by Harry Wheelock in 1899, and that we received permission to use from the Art Institute of Chicago. The project of the year will receive a handcrafted scale model of the entrance arch of the trading room of the Chicago Stock Exchange, the Adler and Sullivan building, whose untimely demolition sparked the very formation of Landmarks Illinois in 1971. The award is a technical marvel with a working clock and lights and even a sound chip that will play back this very program that you are hearing right now. So mind your P's and Q's, all of you who come up here. Thank you to those of you who have joined us earlier for the panel discussion that we had in this room, and our speakers. I want to thank them again, Katie Kim, Michael Rackless, Gail White, and our moderator, Joe Antunovich. It was enlightening to hear their perspective on being recognized with an award and how it inspired their work as it continued. I would like to recognize all of those in attendance representing past award winners. Can I please ask anyone in attendance tonight who is here that received an award in the past over our 25 years to please stand and be recognized? Thank you all for your efforts and your sustained support for preservation throughout Illinois. We will continue the celebration of these people-saving places and their projects after the awards ceremony. The Richard H. Driehaus Foundation Preservation Awards jury is similarly deserving of recognition. These experts volunteered for the very challenging job of narrowing the field from 50 nominations down to just 9 award recipients. They did so after reading hundreds of pages in those nomination forms and deliberating for hours I can tell you. The jurors that are joining us tonight, I would like to recognize them: Frank Butterfield, Krista Gannat, Ellen Stoner, Marty Tangora, and Gail White. Thank you so much. Many of our award winners could only succeed because they had the support of their local elected officials. I would like to recognize and thank our elected and appointed officials who are here with us tonight for their support for historic preservation in their communities and across the state. Let me recognize them by name first, and then let us join together and clap for them at the end. State Senator Pamela Althoff, State Representative Stephen Anderson, Mayor Larry Blomker of the town of Hamel, Chicago Alderman Walter Burnett Jr., State Representative Jahan Gordon Booth, Councilwoman Kathleen Lorenz of the town of Normal, and State Senator Steve Stottleman. Thank you so much for your commitment. Now, similarly, as we need local leadership, we also need leadership of the nonprofit organizations that serve the preservation community, like Landmarks Illinois. I would like to thank our 32-member board of directors who volunteer their time, their talent, and their treasure. They'll tell you that I take them to many committee meetings, but it's because we desperately need their expertise to help all of you do the work that you do around the state. They provide their resources to us willingly, and I would like to thank them deeply on behalf of the staff for all of the work that they do to help us. Those board members in attendance are Gary Anderson, our vice chairman, Joan Tunovich, our past president, Jean Follett, Krista Gannat, Frida Ireland, our treasurer, Judy Mail, Jack Tribia, and Marty Tangora. Thank you very much for your service to this organization. This incredible and inspiring event takes hundreds of hours to put together and is working months in advance to ensure that you are provided with a wonderful experience. That is because of the dedication of Suzanne German, who is our Director of Grants and Easements. She dedicates weeks and weeks of her time to the nomination and jury process, and then another several months to putting together this awards program, along with our events manager, Tiffany Williams. Every staff member at Landmarks Illinois has a part to play in this program, and I want to thank them, my incredible team: Maria Rich, Lisa DiChiara, Frank Butterfield, Amy Eggy, and Caitlin McAvoy for their dedication, deep dedication to making this event a wonderful program that you keep coming back to. Would you allow me to thank them very much and join me? I also want to thank the unsung heroes of many nonprofit organizations, and that is our interns and our volunteers. They get short shrift oftentimes, but we want to make sure that you know that we had two very incredible interns this year, Alyssa Freistack, who is here, and Craig Kennedy, who put in equally dozens and dozens of hours to assembling information about the past 25 years of our award winners to assemble the booklet that you have before you, and also to come up with a vision for how to present 25 years of impact of this award. And our volunteers, thank you to them for their assistance: Kim Gurns, Chelsea Medic, Allison Tunin-Talamo, and Emily Tribia. Thank you very much for your support. Now, Landmarks Illinois' mission is to help people save places. The recipients of our awards here tonight are extraordinary examples of people who have done just that, saved special places in their communities. They have demonstrated leadership within their community and a vision working with their local historic buildings and spaces that they believed were worth saving. They saw a need in their community and they took action. And by preserving places, they have sparked revitalization in their towns and cities, enriched the lives of community members, and helped keep part of their local history and identity alive. As the statewide nonprofit voice for historic preservation, Landmarks Illinois supports preservation projects that create a sense of place, that put people to work, that promote great places to visit, and that maintain vibrant, healthy neighborhoods. Today, we are proud to feature these 9 award-winning projects and people who model the transformative impact of historic preservation. Our program tonight will include a slideshow for each award winner as I provide you with a description of the project. At the conclusion of each individual presentation, I will invite the awards team to join me here at the podium to accept the award and for one project representative to make a few remarks. Few. Now on to the main event. Our first award is for advocacy on behalf of the many former residential hotels here in Chicago. The 4-story Carling Hotel was transformed into 80 single-room occupancy or SRO units. If you haven't heard of an SRO unit, what that means is they were typically rooms that a person could live in or rent that did not have a kitchen, typically, or a bathroom. They had shared facilities for themselves. Now, originally built in 1927 as a residential hotel, the Renaissance Revival building is one of only 65 remaining licensed SRO buildings in the entire city. The scope of work for this project included restoring the building's facade and lobby and updating mechanical and electrical systems. The interior historic fabric, such as terrazzo flooring, plaster walls, the arched doorways you've seen here, and double-loaded corridors were retained. Apartment spaces were reconfigured to provide tenants with larger units that also included private bathrooms and kitchens that we now know are important to somebody's sustainability today. The project utilized complex funding sources and was the first project to take advantage of the City of Chicago's 2014 SRO Preservation Ordinance. Perhaps more important, or most important, the owner, understanding the building's type significance, which is quite unusual and it's recognized, is underrepresented in the scholarly research and the official documentation. They commissioned what's called a multiple properties documentation form, which is essentially a non-contiguous historic district, which was completed in 2016. This document traces the evolution and the importance of residential hotels and establishes a framework for listing a number of them that are not more than the Carling Hotel in the National Register of Historic Places. This undertaking was critical in making available crucial fundraising funds from the federal historic tax credit and will likely do the same for projects like this in the future. Now, due to the complexity of writing a multiple property documentation form, buildings that once solved a pressing housing issue are now able to be adapted for contemporary affordable housing needs. And they demonstrate that historic preservation and affordable housing can come together to create an innovative template for what is often a stigmatized form of housing. The team responsible for this project includes the Michaels Development Group, Landon Bone Baker Architects, McCrosty Historic Advisors, Lynn Mathis Incorporated, and Ramsey Historical Consultants. Accepting the award for advocacy for the Historic Residential Hotels Preservation Planning, the Carling Hotel, is Greg Olson of Michaels Development Company. Greg, would you come up to accept your award?
I'll be brief. Thank you for the great introduction. On behalf of Michaels Development Company, I'd like to thank Landmarks Illinois and the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation for this award. We're very honored to be receiving this today, an award today for work that we do every day. We develop affordable housing for individuals and families in a thoughtful manner. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank several people involved in the project, several of whom are here today. Obviously, McCrosty Historic Advisors, Emily and Laura Ramsey of Ramsey Historic Advisors, Jeff Bone and Dominic Soltis of Landon Bone Baker, Bob Mathis and Jeff Nosich of Lynn Mathis, and my colleagues at Michaels Development and Interstate Realty Management. We've just mentioned some of the history of the property. As many of you are aware, residential hotels in Chicago, especially those serving low-income housing of last resort, began getting redeveloped really following the 2008 recession. Many of these properties, because they're located along the lakefront in higher income areas, are really vulnerable to redevelopment. A lot of the credit for advancing the multiple property documentation form really goes to Emily Ramsey and McCrosty Historic Advisors. For many years, they sought out a developer to assist them in putting this together and take on the burden of moving the process forward. And they eventually found us, so we were a willing participant. The result is really a win for both the affordable housing community and for the historic preservation community. Thank you to everybody who participated in the project, and thank you for Richard H. Driehaus Foundation and Landmarks, Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were brief remarks.
Yeah, I wanted to keep it short.
Thank you, Greg. Those were brief remarks. Nicely done. Now, our next award goes to the longest continually operating theater in Chicago, the Davis Theater, which is located in the Lincoln Square neighborhood. Built in 1918, the Davis Theater has gone through numerous adaptations and reconfigurations throughout the years that attempted to meet the needs of theater goers. This left much of the historic elements covered, though, damaged or missing, and the building lacked sufficient amenities and facilities. The scope of work for this project included combining 2 of the 4 theaters in order to return the building to its original 1930s three-screen theater. The larger main theater retained its sloped floor seating and exposed the previously concealed pipe organ that flanked the original proscenium arch and stage. New seating, screens, digital projection equipment, and surround sound systems were introduced to meet modern needs without altering the original historic character of the space. Intact decorative ceiling molding, crowns, capitals, and pilasters were restored, and replicas were fabricated in kind based on the originals. Many of the Art Deco light fixtures, hardware, doors, and other details in the theater's lobby were cleaned and retained. Adjacent storefront spaces were reallocated to allow for the addition of a full-service lounge, restaurant, and bar. The rehabilitation of the Davis Theater made possible the continued use of this 100-year-old community landmark. By incorporating modern amenities and technology with historic fabric, the project provides a more functional space for patrons to enjoy. The team responsible for the Davis Theater project includes Tom Fensel of Fensel Properties, Kennedy Mann Architecture, Analogous Company, and McCrosty Historic Advisors. Accepting the award for rehabilitation is Tom Fensel of Fensel Properties. Tom, would you join me?
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Landmarks, for, it's always an honor to be honored. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate everything you do in our city. And to my team, my partners, and everybody involved, I couldn't have done it without you. McCrosty, you did an amazing job. Kennedy Mann Architecture, you guys are the best. And to Tim, to Ben, to Ryan, thanks for sticking with me throughout the whole dreaming process and making our dreams become a reality. So thank you very much, appreciate it, and come out and see us.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
I found it interesting when I was reading the description of this that a new modern amenity in a theater is a bar. That's what we expect now when we go to the theater. I thought it was a tub of popcorn the size of your torso and a 70-ounce drink. So times they are a-changin'. The adaptive reuse of the Elgin Tower building transformed the former Home Banks building, a 15-story Art Deco tower, into a 44-unit market-rate housing complex. Considered the tallest building in Elgin, the iconic tower was completed in June of 1929, just months before the stock market crash, leading to decades of underutilization. The recent adaptive reuse project is exemplary, not only for its exterior restoration and interior reuse, but also for the extensive collaboration that it took to ensure the project's success, which relied heavily on both community and organizational support. The Illinois River Edge Redevelopment Zone Historic Tax Credit, which I'll refer to as the RERZ, was set to expire in December of 2016, and construction delays, due to unforeseen circumstances, threatened the project's very use of this instrumental fundraising tool and its completion. Landmarks Illinois acknowledged the impending expiration of the RERZ tax credit by listing it in our 2015 Most Endangered Historic Places list. We successfully lobbied with representatives from the 5 river edge cities to ensure that the legislation was extended, ultimately saving this project. The exterior scope of work included restoring the building's limestone facade, restoring the iconic corner-mounted clock, and installing 272 windows that are in keeping with the historic profile. The interior scope of work included the restoration of the entrance lobby, which involved restoring historic elevator cabs, decorative plaster, and the chandelier. Original office features, including doors and cabinets, were incorporated into the design of the new apartments. The Elgin Tower building is considered one of the projects that has had the most impact in the city's historic downtown in over 20 years, and has since spurred interest among other property owners who are looking to rehabilitate their historic buildings with the use of both federal and state historic tax credits. And by the way, I want to acknowledge our partner, Anthony Rabano, who is here representing our State Historic Preservation Office. Many of the projects you're here tonight utilize the federal historic tax credit, which they administer. So acknowledgments and thanks to them. The team responsible for this project includes Capstone Development Group, Webster Design, Skender Construction, and the City of Elgin. Accepting the award for adaptive reuse is Bill Lucchini of Capstone Development Group. Bill, will you join me?
Thank you, Landmarks Illinois and the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation. We appreciate the accolade on a very difficult project. The project literally was on the brink of demolition, so it's kind of rewarding to see it saved. So my team, Skinner Construction and Webster Design, and most importantly, the City of Elgin, it was their vision to save the building. This is a building that's been on their letterhead for quite some time, so to have a building go away and change your letterhead would be very costly. And so for that reason, it was worth saving. And so the City of Elgin, they worked with several different contractors and developers to try to figure out a way to make this work. And so for years, it was kind of deemed unfeasible, and so it got to the point where they actually got bids for demolition on the building. So the fact that it's standing, functional, and very successful and impactful for the downtown is great to see. So we appreciate the award and looking forward to the building being out there for another 100 years. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, congratulations. Wonderful job. Oh, Bill. Congratulations to all involved, and we hope that you keep going. As we heard in the panel discussion, once you get the bug, you're going to keep going with those preservation projects. I am honored to present this year's President's Award in the newest category that we have created, Legislator of the Year, which recognizes elected officials who champion historic preservation policy, programs, and funding. Illinois is fortunate to have 4 legislators in both the state Senate and House of Representatives who have made historic preservation a priority by ensuring incentives are in place to spur adaptive reuse. 4 lawmakers will share the award this year. All 4 have been champions of historic preservation and instrumental in helping to enact preservation legislation at the state of Illinois. Most recently, the new state historic tax credit, overwhelmingly approved by the legislature on May 31st. Governor Bruce Rauner signed the legislation into law on July 27, 2018 in Peoria. by the way, and also improving the existing RERZ state historic tax credit at the same time. This was a major accomplishment for the state, the preservation community, and a bill that Landmarks Illinois has lobbied for 9 years. I would like to invite this year's winners of the Legislator of the Award to the stage all together, and we will hear from them independently. Senator Pamela Althoff, Representative Stephen Anderson, Representative Jahan Gordon Booth, and Senator Steve Stottleman. Would you please come up? We'll start with you. I'd like to begin with State Senator Pamela Althoff, who represents both McHenry and Lake counties and was a founding member of the Illinois Historic Preservation Caucus. Since becoming its co-chair in 2013, she has worked to expand the caucus's activity to educational tours about heritage tourism, the value of historic tax credits, and becoming advocates before their own congressional colleagues to save the federal historic tax credit. Every year, she has put forth legislation for a state historic tax credit, including the RERZ extension bill, and she has helped ensure the success of Senator Stottleman's bill, which created the Illinois Historic Preservation Tax Credit. Please welcome Senator Pamela Althoff.
I married that man with that letter A, so I'm always first at these things, which I hate. So thank you very much to the Driehaus Foundation as well as Landmarks Illinois. This award truly is very special and very personal to me. But I have to note, I am a politician, and if I start talking, I will not be brief. So I just want you all to know that I truly am honored, and I'm extremely delighted to be sharing the award with these 3 individuals who I consider esteemed colleagues as well as friends. So thank you very much.
There's also one more letter A out there, Senator Althoff, and that is State Representative Stephen Anderson, who is next. Representing Kane County, joined the leadership of the Historic Preservation Caucus in 2014, as soon as he took office. A resident of historic Geneva, Anderson has a deep understanding of historic preservation as being good for the economy and defining community. With Elgin located in his district, Anderson was instrumental in helping gain legislative approval for the RERZ tax credit 1-year extension in 2016 and the 4-year extension of that program in 2017. Representative Anderson publicly speaks about the pivotal role that the credit has played in creating jobs and revitalizing vacant and blighted historic properties in Aurora, Elgin, Rockford, and Peoria, and its success in spurring private development in these communities. He was named 2018 Legislator of the Year by our partners, AIA Illinois. Would you please welcome Representative Stephen Anderson?
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's an incredible honor. As Bonnie indicated, this is a passion of mine, and it's a passion because it relates to 3 of my passions. When you talk to legislators will typically find their niche, things that they're passionate about. Well, I have 3. One of them is mental health. In fact, that's my most significant one, the thing I care most about. Second is the environment. Third is historic preservation. But what I'm happy to say is these projects serve all 3. They absolutely serve all 3. Because when I say we, I didn't do it, but when the hospital in Aurora was rehabilitated, and we honored that last year, it's in a blighted neighborhood. And it was a dump, quite frankly, that attracted the wrong people. Now it's a shining light, a gem, if you will, that attracts the right people. And that's wrong. It's wrong to say the right people. It encourages people to their better selves, and that's what it does. So these buildings do save people. They do save lives. That's number 1. Number 2, like I said, I'm an environmentalist. Well, you know what the most efficient, effective way to be sustainable is to not build a new building. It's to save one that's already there, and we do that here. And then third, of course, is the historic preservation that we do within it. You know, that we save these buildings for our future. And I kept hearing everybody say, I want to see this building here in 100 years. I want to see it here in 1,000 years. I want to make sure that our history is never forgotten. And that might be a bit of a challenge, but I have faith in the future in being able to do that. So I want to thank you for the honor. And I will tell you, it's kind of an incredible honor because I've been coming to this since 2005, long before I was a legislator or even thought of being a legislator. And I would look up, and I know a lot of planners and a lot of architects. My wife's an architect and a historic planner. And I would always sit here going, man, that would be cool to get that. But I can't get it because I'm not an architect, I'm not a planner, not any of those things. And then when I found out about this, man, it brought a tear to my eye because this is one that means something not only to the whole world, to the whole community, but it's meant something to me for a very long time. So it's truly, truly an honor. Thank you very much.
Oh, you know what? I think we'll take them all together. Thank you, Representative Anderson. I love how visionary you are. Let us hope we're here back in 1,000 years talking about these buildings. An equally visionary person is our next legislator, and that is State Representative Jahan Gordon Booth, who represents Peoria County. She has been a proponent of historic preservation since she took office in 2009. A resident of Peoria, Representative Gordon Booth was involved in the development and passage of the 2012 River Edge Redevelopment Zone tax credit. She has worked to reach out to individuals, leaders, and organizations in an effort to understand ways in which the program could better serve their needs. Representative Gordon Booth was the lead House sponsor of the statewide Historic Preservation Tax Credit bill this year, and I can tell you, I know firsthand, that she worked into the wee hours of May 31st, the last day of the session, to ensure that it passed. And by the way, it passed the House 111 and 11 to 0. So it was by a majority. If there's one rock star of preservation, I think it is her. So please welcome her to the podium.
Good evening. It's always an honor to be honored to do the work, right? This is our job. This is what we're supposed to do. And so it's really an amazing opportunity to get a pat on the back for doing the work that we're supposed to do. I want to thank Bonnie and all of her phenomenal staff at Landmarks, Illinois. We have countless emails that were going into the wee hours of the night where I'd be, texting or emailing her. I'm laying next to my incredibly supportive husband who's with me here tonight, Derek Booth, talking about strategy in terms of how we were going to get the votes to get this done because we knew we needed to get this done. The reason why we needed to get this done is because we have an incredibly important story to tell here in Illinois. A state having a statewide historic tax credit is not a new idea. That's the reality. This is not a new concept. But for some reason in Illinois, and thank God for Landmarks Illinois for keeping this in front of legislators for the last 9 years, the fact of the matter of it is this is something that is necessary and it's so needed to do the work that we need done in so many of our communities. When we think about the story of Illinois and who we are and why we do what we do, we have to remember as Illinoisans, we are fighters. We are fighters, and we have to fight for the state that we all love. This is all of our state. And so when we think about the economic opportunity that this brings, and not just saving a building, but preserving memories and creating new memories for so many people that need these spaces, these places, to be able to be the cornerstone of all kinds of memories, from weddings to receptions to meeting and gathering places, to then be able to tell that story of not just that town, but of that family. And I was proud to work with not just Landmarks Illinois, but these phenomenal legislators that you see standing before you tonight. One thing that you may not know, but you have a legislator from each caucus in Springfield. You have a Democrat from the House, a Democrat from the Senate, a Republican from the Senate, and a Republican from the House. So we are representative of what can be done when people are willing to work together towards a common goal. Come on now, I only have a few more seconds. 1981 was a magnificent year. I was born that year, but this is not about me. In 1981, President Reagan signed, as many of you know in this room, he signed the first historic preservation national legislation in this country, and because of that legislation, 42,000 buildings have been able to be repaired. We've had over 130 billion with a B, $1 billion in private investment put back into older buildings in our communities, older magnificent buildings in our communities, and over 2.5 million jobs that have been created that build not just a better community, but a sense of pride for what that community can be if we simply work together. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much for the work that you do in your communities across the state. And remember, we can all be better, if you say it with me, together.
Thank you, Representative Gordon Booth. Illinois State Senator Steve Stottleman is our final legislator of the year this evening, and I will tell you that he had a tough hill to climb to meet Representative Gordon Booth's challenge of 110 to 11, 51 to 0 in the Senate, passing the state historic tax credit. Not that there's any one-upmanship in the Capitol. So Senator Stottleman represents Rockford and Winnebago counties, and he was instrumental, as I said, in introducing and securing passage of legislation in 2016 for saving the RERZ credit, as well as 2017 when it expanded that credit, and also the legislation to create the new state historic preservation tax credit. His efforts helped to save several projects that were already in the development pipeline in the process of passing that extension for the RERZ credit. What was at risk in his community was $100 million alone in economic development activity in historic preservation. He went to bat for that, and he was successful. So understanding the power of that has demonstrated that Senator Stottleman is a leader, and we appreciate everything that he has done, not only for these incentives, but also being a leader in his community and preservation. Would you please welcome Senator Steve Stottleman?
Good evening, everyone. I know you are at great risk by giving 4 politicians the microphone tonight, but don't worry, I will be brief as well. But thank you. I'm thrilled to be part of the inaugural awards given to lawmakers. I think that's a very great idea, and I'm thrilled to be here. City of Rockford, about a week ago, held a news conference showing the media and members of the public a new building project that's going on downtown, taking an old factory building, has been vacant for decades, and turning it into a hotel, a conference, convention center, thanks to this, it's possible because of this tax credit. And it's exciting. People were really excited to see the improvements that would be coming down over the next year. Construction jobs, economic growth downtown, beautiful views of the river, just an excitement whenever you have a new project anywhere. But to me, the real importance of this type of project was the psyche of the community. When they look at the city skyline downtown, and right now they see a vacant, rotting, old factory building with some historic qualities, but been sitting there for decades. And when they see that turn into a new hotel, convention center, what does that do to a community? It says people believe in our downtown, people believe in our community, people believe that a historic, old Rust Belt city can have better days ahead. And I think that's what's symbolic with these types of projects, and that's what the historic tax credit allows communities like Rockford to do and to achieve. So I'm thrilled that there were several communities, as we mentioned, that were able to take advantage of this River's Edge credit, but we're able to not only extend it, but improve it, remove some obstacles for developers out there, but also expand it statewide. So other cities across the state can have similar stories that have been already happening in several River Edge communities already. So as was mentioned, this was not necessarily easy. It was a bipartisan effort, Democrats and Republicans. As you see, but we both pushed it through. A special shout out to Pamela Altoff. I'm a relatively newbie to the Senate, but she's been around for a few more years. But she, unfortunately, will be retiring, I think, at the end of this month. You'll be stepping down, and we'll be missing you, Pam. You were great guidance, and this, I think, was really symbolic of the type of wisdom and the ability to bring people together that you afford us in this project. So, and she's always giving, you know, even on the Senate floor, she's giving wonderful advice. Before I came up here, she told me to make sure I had the microphone next to my mouth. So that's the type of advice she's always willing to give. So, but again, thanks. I also want to thank Landmarks as well and other advocates for historic preservation, because your presence in Springfield and your continued vision allows legislation like this to happen. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, Senators and Representatives. It is an honor to have you, and I'm confident that next year and the years thereafter, we will see many projects that are coming to us helped funded through the incentives that you have made possible. So thank you very deeply. Our next award recipient is the Opera House Block, which was built in 1899, and once again stands as an anchor of historic downtown Plainfield. The building had undergone numerous renovations and alterations during the 1950s and 1960s. Using historic photographs as well as on-site physical evidence, the owner completely rehabilitated the building in 2 phases. During the first phase, new utilities and mechanicals were installed, and the storefronts were brought back to their original design. In the second phase of rehabilitation, the second floor atrium, the original hardwood floors, and the ticket office were exposed and restored. A 1940s addition was replaced with a more sensitive addition on the south end of the building that provides space for a new elevator, bathrooms, food preparation, and storage for the kitchen space, and an entrance to the south terrace for outdoor dining. This project has anchored the revitalization of Plainfield's historic downtown business district, while also bringing new service and entertainment options to the surrounding community. The team responsible for the Opera House Block includes Bill Habinger, Eris Architects and Planners, Bouchard Bite, Architects, Plainfield Historic Preservation Commission, and Mathis Construction. Accepting the award for rehabilitation for the Opera House Block is Bill Habinger, the owner of the building. Bill, would you join me, please?
Thank you for this award. Thank you very much. I feel very honored to have received it. Before I get into my notes here, I'd like to do a little advertising and say that the restaurant turned out very well. I have no affiliation to it other than collecting the rent check once a month. And you should all give it a try. It's a great place. A project like this takes work and combined efforts of a number of people and organizations to make these restorations happen. The Village of Plainfield spent a large amount of money to upgrade the downtown area to attract developers and businesses. They also instituted a TIF program that enabled me to offset the cost of the restoration. The nonprofit organizations, all the way from local level to the national level, such as the Plainfield Historical Society that nominated the Opera House restoration for this award, Landmarks Illinois, who's sponsoring this event, the National Trust for Historic Preservation are all instrumental in making these projects possible. We also use and depend on the support of the governmental agencies, all the way from local governments, such as the Village of Plainfield, to the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency in Springfield, and the National Park Service that approves these projects for the federal tax credit. So I say thank you to all these organizations and their staff. Without the help of these projects, the projects would not be feasible. The projects don't happen because they are the best investment of time and money, but because they are those of us that are dedicated to the preservation of the past for the enjoyment of the future. So again, thank you very much for the award, and thank you.
Bill, thank you so much. And I just want to say once again, we appreciate the owners who make all of this possible. Without the owners doing this work, none of us could serve your needs, so we thank you. Our next award goes to the historic Chicago Defender Building, now Revel Motor Row, which can be found at East 24th Street and South Michigan Avenue in the Motor Row Historic District in Chicago. The project combined and transformed the former Illinois Automotive Club Chicago Defender Building and the Cadillac Motor Car Company showroom into an event and production space. Having sat vacant for nearly a decade, both buildings were in need of extensive work. The Cadillac building had been substantially gutted by a former owner, and the Defender building had sustained significant water damage that had destroyed much of the original wood paneling as well as its plaster work. The scope of work in the Defender building included replication of the original steel windows and the restoration of stained glass windows and the original motor car weather vane atop the tower. The interior was reconfigured to match its original 1936 plan. Paneling and plasterwork were replicated based on documentation. Original plaster relief maps were restored, and the skylight-lit pool room was converted into an event space. In the adjacent Cadillac building, work included reconstructing missing windows as well as street-level storefront. They recovered floor and ceiling fragments, and they were used to replicate the showroom's original tile paving and its ornate plasterwork. These two landmark buildings, now restored and revitalized, bring to life both Chicago's auto history and the story of one of its most important African-American buildings and the most important African-American newspaper in the country. For conventioneers that are at MPEA and event goers in the developing South Loop community. The team responsible for this project, Revel Motor Row, is Property Adventures, Filoramo Talisman Architecture, the Engineering Studio, McCrosty Historic Advisors, LLC, and Skyline Plastering, Incorporated. Accepting the award this evening for rehabilitation is Clint Patton from Revel Motor Row. Clint, would you join me, please?
Well, to say I'm a bit nervous coming up after 4 politicians is an understatement. But Mr. Driehaus, thank you so much for the honor to the Driehaus Foundation. I'm incredibly humbled as well as excited to be your neighbor just down the street. Without Alex Purcell and the team from Property Adventures, we would certainly not be here tonight. When I first drove past this building, if we could reverse the slides and see the dilapidated version that it once was. And I called Alex and I said, hey, found our next project. And he was like, you're crazy. That's never going to happen. But luckily enough, I was I convinced him to do it, and therefore we have this amazing building on the south side today. When you spoke about the legacy of the building and the fact that it served as not only the Illinois Automobile Club from the early 1930s, but then later in the 1950s as the Chicago Defender, that is I must tell you, carrying that legacy on is one of the most proud things I've done in my career so far, and I'm honored to be managing that today. A few other people here I'd like to thank. Sarah Benaziak from my team. She is the one responsible for how beautiful the building looks on the inside and outside. Thank you, Sarah. Landmarks Illinois, thank you so much. Chris Talsma, Filaramo Talsma Architects, without you, we couldn't have done this. John from McRosty, thank you. And finally, and most importantly, Alderman Dowell. She's not here with us this evening, but I know Robert Charles is. Thank you so much for all the support. Certainly, again, we would not be here without you. Thank you.
Congratulations. It's a beautiful building. Yeah. Thank you, Clint. Our Skyline Council held its annual social there last November, and the space was truly special and phenomenal in every way. And I'm just going to give a commercial for you that I encourage everyone to hold an event at Revel Motor Row. It is truly extraordinary. So we're moving from the south side to the north side of Chicago for our next award recipient, which is Save Our Story, Save Our Street, the creation of the West Burton Place Historic District. It was a grassroots effort to save this historic block in Chicago's Old Town neighborhood. The campaign was an effort by residents and preservationists to protect the block, which is comprised of several former live-work spaces that had been carved out of historic and stately mansions in the 1920s and 1930s to house artists in Old Town's burgeoning art scene. Many of the artists who inhabited the block, including Edgar Miller, Saul Kogan, and Andrew Rabori, left their indelible mark on this particular block and in their community. Advocacy efforts were instigated when a developer threatened to demolish a historic building that sat adjacent to Edgar Miller's famous Carl Street studios. When legal options seemed limited, a grassroots group composed of residents and local advocates formed, each member contributing to that effort by offering their own distinct skills. One engaged the developer to urge them to an alternative plan for demolition, and another labored to garner media attention. One neighbor started a website, while another designed a logo that could be printed on t-shirts and postcards. The group drafted a landmark designation report. The members delivered compelling testimony that ultimately secured the district's landmark status just 1 week after the demolition permit was issued. Fortunately, a neighboring property owner stepped in and purchased the building and is currently rehabilitating the property. The legacy of Save Our Story, Save Our Street campaign continues on today in the form of the West Burton Place Neighborhood Association, which works in part to continue to preserve, promote, and celebrate the unique artistic, cultural, and historic significance of the 100 block of West Burton Place. There's a large team that is to be recognized and thanked for this, and I want to make sure that they all know that I wish they could join us up here, but we're going to ask one representative to come up on their behalf. So the team responsible for this incredible advocacy project includes Amy Keller, Zach Bleicher, Keith Stolte, Alan Artner, Trish Vanderbeek, Bill Blighty and Lisa Mates, Lauren Whitney, Sophia Levy-Cohn, Janine Aldinger, and the residents of the West Burton Place Landmark District. So accepting the award for advocacy for Save Our Story, Save Our Street is Amy Keller. Amy, could you come up and join us, please?
Thank you so much to Landmarks Illinois and to the Richard Driehaus Foundation for this amazing award. And also, before I begin, I wanted to thank Alderman Burnett for his support in landmarking. We look forward to your continued support as our neighborhood faces development. On behalf of this fantastic group of individuals, neighbors, and friends, thank you for recognizing our tenacity, our foolishness, and our desire to maintain the historic fabric of our dear city. Development, sustainable development, is important to ensure the future survival of any town. It's crucial to provide housing options to individuals who need them. It's necessary to attract business. It's important to provide new architects and designers a platform to lend their voice to the story of Chicago. But somehow, we've forgotten all that. We've forgotten our values along the way. We've forgotten that neighborhoods with a story to tell and a past worth remembering are worth saving. We threw up our hands at the difficulty of maintaining historic homes, allowing developers to gulp up 2, 3, 4 historic homes at a time to build McMansions and condos with unscalable walls, cut off from neighbors, cut off from communities. So our neighborhood said, enough. Enough with the destruction. Enough with the marring of the story of this unique community. Enough of the development for development's sake for $1 without investing in the community and without sticking around. Oops. La 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 la. See, this is the problem with millennials is, we try to use our iPhones for everything and then, in any event, we hear so many instances of demolition in this town, folks complaining on social media, yeah, okay, me, or to one another about a home on their block being torn down, waiting for a savior, waiting for someone to start a petition, to speak to the alderman, to buy a threatened building like Trish Vanderbeek did here, to landmark communities for us. But let me tell you, there is no savior. There's no magic landmarks fairy. The city of Chicago, for example, expects one individual to do the work that a dozen used to do. So who can save our communities? We can, and we know it's possible because we did it already. Development is important, but our city is a city of neighborhoods made up of community members, potluck planners, volunteers, and passionate folks who want to make sure that their communities are still around for their children and their grandchildren. We saved our story by saving our street, and we're so thankful that we got to share our story with all of you tonight. So on behalf of the neighbors of the 100 block of West Burton Place and all of the volunteers that made this happen, from a little cul-de-sac between LaSalle and Wells, thank you so much, and thank you for recognizing our efforts tonight.
Well done, Amy, and well done, all of you. I don't think you actually need notes because you're one of the best speakers from your heart about preservation, and keep going. So thank you for everything that you have done. A similar story from the heart is our next award winner, and that's the Van Leers Broadview Mansion in Normal, which is a model example of a public-private partnership created to protect a 1906 house, its 3-acre estate, and a 110-foot bell tower. When the estate's owner, the Emmanuel Bible Foundation, considered selling the property to a developer, the town of Normal stepped in to collaborate with the Bible Foundation in order to create a plan that would safeguard the mansion's future. The town agreed to assist with maintenance expenses in exchange for the foundation's consent to designate the property a local landmark. The deal also gave the town of Normal first right of refusal if the foundation were to decide to sell the property in the future. This agreement was successful in not only designating Van Leers Broadview Mansion a local landmark, thus preventing future demolition, but also in listing the mansion in the National Register of Historic Places in 2016. The mansion now provides programming for the community, including concerts and open houses. The active and preemptive measures taken by the town of Normal, as well as the Emmanuel Bible College, demonstrate what can be achieved by partners that understand the importance of our historic places. In a time when we see several local governments statewide that are moving to demolish their own landmarks, we are proud to hold the Town of Normal and the Bible Foundation up as models. The team responsible for this project includes Chris Coos, who is the mayor of the Town of Normal, as well as his council and the staff of the Town of Normal and the Emmanuel Bible Foundation. Accepting the award for stewardship is Town Councilwoman Kathleen Lorenz of the Town of Normal. Kathleen, would you please come up?
Good evening. Thank you so much. This is truly an honor from the Town of Normal on behalf of our mayor, Chris Coos, who himself is a wonderful advocate for historic preservation. On behalf of the Emmanuel Bible Foundation, Dr. David Strand, also a former president of our Illinois State University and now with the Broadview Mansion. I am honored to be here to accept this honor. And thank you to the Driehaus Foundation, to Landmarks Illinois. And it's rather fitting that we receive this stewardship award because I can truly say that as a council member, we are nonpartisan and we are at large. So to Representative Gordon Booth, we work together. And we do what's right regardless of whatever letter may be ascribed to the end of our name. We work together to do what's right for our town and our community. And I think this is an example of that. We all see ourselves as stewards of this community, and it was an honor to be able to come together. Thank you to also a very forward-thinking city manager on our staff and an entire amazing staff at the Town of Normal to work together with the Emmanuel Bible Foundation and maintain this beautiful structure, which is on a slight rise in our geography, which is fairly flat. And it's just beautiful, and particularly the bell tower. And I had the opportunity to visit and tour the mansion with Dr. Strand. And the story goes that this was a labor of love for Mrs. Van Leer. And so it's just an amazing tribute to their legacy and to our history that it has been maintained. So thank you again for this honor. And I'm just so glad that we can share this successful story. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We are equally excited to share your example with other local town councils as well and city councils. So thank you very much for your proactive work. We are going to conclude the 2018 award winners with our project of the year. Tonight, we are honored to be joined by Kim Coventry, Executive Director of the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation, to present this final award. Kim.
Good evening. So happy to be here tonight. I am always glad to be at this event because it reminds me why I spend so many hours in conversation with people who are on the front lines, because you actually make a difference. I just want to say, last year I spoke a little bit about cognitive neuroscience and the importance of memory and place, and how important historic preservation is to memory. And I heard from so many of you that I thought I might also tell you this year a little bit about what we're thinking about at the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation. And one of those things that we're thinking about is the idea of integrative preservation. So preservation that is not a isolated discipline, preservation that works in tandem with all of the assets that make up a place. And this, I believe, and Richard and I have talked about, is probably one more path to the future. I think it's one more tool that preservation has at its disposal and needs to avail itself of, is this idea of partnering with the broader set of assets than any given place or community, the things that make that place special. And those are different in every community, of course. So that's what we're thinking about at the Driehaus Foundation. And each year, it's been my great pleasure to present this final award. This year, let's see, I'm going to take off these glasses. The Manny Jackson Center for Humanities in Edwardsville is the recipient of the 2018 Project of the Year Award for Leadership. The project transformed the former Lincoln School, a historically African-American school built in 1912, into a vibrant meeting space and cultural center. Support for this extensive renovations included a combination of individual gifts, corporate support, and most importantly, a unique public-private partnership that brought together Manny Jackson, a successful philanthropist and entrepreneur and businessman, with Lewis and Clark Community College. Jackson, a former Lincoln School student, purchased the dilapidated building and donated it to Lincoln and Clark Community College for use as a humanities center and community gathering space. It now hosts humanities research and education with lectures, readings, dialogues, public service opportunities, and other programming. The center's design provides the community with a 25,000 square foot ballroom that accommodates up to 140 guests, as well as a 1,250 square foot conference room that can host up to 60 guests. The Manny Jackson Center for the Humanities Project has incubated and sustained cultural growth in the region, actively worked to build understanding between communities, and served as a catalyst for further development in an area that has long been neglected. The team responsible for this project includes Lewis and Clark Community College, the Manny Jackson Foundation, the Lincoln School Alumni Foundation, and the Edwardsville Historic Preservation Commission. Accepting the award for Project of the Year for leadership is Dale Chapman, president of Lewis and Clark Community College. Dale, will you please join us?
I'm Casey Weeks from the Edwardsville Historic Preservation Commission. I just want to acknowledge and thank all the work of the Lincoln School Alumni Foundation for preserving this tangible memory of segregation, which can never be forgotten. Thank you.
Well, thanks to Landmarks Illinois, your wonderful board, Mr. Driehaus, and the foundation, and Bonnie and the staff. We're extremely honored to get this award and this recognition. Thanks to Casey Weeks, who you just heard from the Illinois Historic Preservation Commission, the Manny Jackson Center for the Humanities Foundation, the Lincoln School Alumni Foundation, for pushing Manny Jackson to help save the building long enough to think about the purpose of how it would be redefined, which Lewis and Clark helped to do. So Manny Jackson, grew up in a boxcar, and he became the owner of the Harlem Globetrotters. He didn't forget about his hometown, so he really wanted to come back and make an impact. And that's how we knew that this particular project was the right project for the area. And you've heard tonight that preserving buildings is one of the best thing you can do in terms of green buildings, of course. But perhaps more importantly, we're mindful that each of the Lewis and Clark preservation projects and repurposing projects, and there have been several, especially this one, celebrates iconic pivotal events and people. It's an honor to bring back to contemporary memory what's happened in this sense of place. In this case, Governor Coles, the second governor of Illinois, freed his slaves at this spot. The site was where, during the Jim Crow laws, that segregated Lincoln School functioned with honor and distinction, and now where this Manny Jackson Center for the Humanities is going to take us into the future. So we couldn't be more proud and humble about receiving this award, and we thank you for this honor.
It's now my pleasure to introduce my boss, Richard H. Driehaus, the founder and president of the Driehaus Foundation. For the past 5 years, I have worked very closely with Richard and have witnessed his deep concern for the built environment, and I have to say his palpable frustration when he learns of the loss of an important building, and his pure joy when he learns that one has been saved. These are very strong emotions coming from a deeply committed man. So Richard, will you join us?
Thank you, Kim, for your steadfast stewardship of the Driehaus Foundation. It is humbling to be in the presence of so many people on the front lines of historic preservation. Your efforts have been transformative. Whether you worked on a reuse of an historic building, created a new public place, provided special expertise on a project, or worked with a unit of government friendly to preservation, or provided critical philanthropic efforts for funding a commercial loan. I established my foundation in 1983. It was always my intent to share, but I was waiting for a time that worked. I had been successful in the stock market and was now ready to continue in a more meaningful way. I did not have a formal plan. I knew I wanted to give to Chicago and the performing arts. At the same time, I was drawn to beautiful buildings, public spaces, and the elements that create a sense of place. It took longer to identify how to be an effective conduit in this philanthropic effort, and particularly in the world of architecture. Unlike the stock market, which is ephemeral and constantly changing, the built environment is ever present, solid, durable, functional, and long-lasting. It is like a counter anchor to my business life. Along the way, I have learned that some historic buildings and assets like parks, monuments, views, and vistas embody important narratives that are at the core of community and personal identity. To me, historic preservation is an investment that generates significant and enduring return. Because in the end, without the built environment, we lose part of our identity. A growing body of evidence makes clear that human memories are nearly always situated in physical locations and places. This is a complex, multisensory phenomena. As one researcher puts it, place-bound experiences constitute the very framework for our sense of self and perceived identity. Each Driehaus Preservation Award recipient over the last 25 years has made a lasting contribution to its community and its people. They have furthered our shared missions to improve the built environment. They have recognized the complex and critical role our built culture plays in maintaining healthy communities and healthy individuals. Congratulations to tonight's honorees and to the many past honorees. If you survived a preservation project, it's true. You are an important storyteller. A naturally born community organizer, and a diplomat. But stay the course. We all need you. Heartfelt thanks to Landmarks Illinois for managing this award for 25 years. It's as much a reflection on you and your work as it is on the winners. While the awards spotlight the work of others, they also honor your efforts to keep the preservation movement alive. The support you provide to the preservation community in Illinois is priceless. After all, architecture should speak of time and place, but yearn for timeliness and sense of place. Ours has been a close and impactful partnership. Thank you. We are grateful to all of you. Thank you. Meet you later for a drink.
I think Richard's closing words are the most fitting that we could provide. I think that the board and the staff would want me, though, to give our most heartfelt thanks that he could be with us tonight. It is so significant to have a person of Richard's caliber believe in the work that we all do. I think that we can see someone with this deep passion and the capacity to give to so many of us in such a generous spirit can make a true difference in the world. And not only here in Chicago and Illinois, but this impact has been felt across the nation, across the world. And Richard, thank you so deeply for believing that what we do can make a difference. So thank you for that. I'm equally inspired by having the partnership that Richard has talked about with Kim Coventry, who has been an extraordinary an extraordinary collaborator with us. What you may not know is that we work deeply in conjunction with the foundation, not only in the awards, but on many other programs. And so I encourage you to think about the work that you do in your local communities with your foundations to establish these kinds of partnerships, to have that level of significant and expansive impact. And I think what closing words I would say is that every person in this room is a champion, like Richard is, like Kim is, like every board member that we have and every staff member that we have. Our members in this room, our donors in this room, all of the advocates. You have the capacity to do great work if you stand up and have a voice, as the people that you have seen tonight have done. This arduous work has great reward, not only for you, but for the people in your communities, and I encourage you to be that champion. And if you need some inspiration, why don't you come upstairs and meet the champions that have been featured tonight? We will be on the 9th floor at a reception with all of them. Drinks are plentiful. The night is young. I hope you'll join us again next year. And thank you, everyone, for coming. Congratulations, award winners.